Hello, in today's video we will be looking at some stories from r/MaliciousCompliance. Sit tight and enjoy. Won't make me supervisor? Guess I'm not qualified to train new employees then. Male. Just for context, I work at a call center, but we also answer emails. I was hired a couple months ago because the company was expanding their operations and they were establishing a tier 2 escalation. I was in the first batch of hires and was told that I would be made supervisor for the next hiring batch, especially since I have previously been a supervisor at my previous job. Next hiring batch comes. I wasn't part of the supervisor training, but the rest of my coworkers hired along with me were. Reasons given by the team manager is that I listen to podcasts while working. I was always told by my trainers that it was totally fine to do that if you do your job correctly. Team manager explained that I do a great job and will be part of the next supervisor training sessions. Next hiring batch came. I have been made responsible by a supervisor to train every new hires, to train them on system that was overlooked during their training. I did their training as regular, and at the end of the day team manager pulls me aside, explain that I won't be supervisor period. He mentioned my performance on answering emails on a specific day when it was extremely busy that day and made a few mistakes. I explained to him that you can't value the performance of a potential team leader on email mistakes on a bad day, especially since what I'm already being a team leader with the new hires. Regardless, I wouldn't be made supervisor at all. Team manager the day after decides instead to put one of the brand new 5 days old employee as a supervisor, and this got scratching my head. I literally was doing supervisor work just the day before. Regardless, he is made supervisor on the floor a week later. Then a few days ago, the new employee/supervisor was the only supervisor on the floor that day. I was the most experienced present. An employee needed training on how to process a specific email. The new employee/supervisor didn't know how to do it, and since for the last week or so I have been the point of reference for questions and helping out. He reached out to me on how to proceed. I answered I can't. I'm not qualified for that. You are the supervisor. You are responsible to train them. Then the email couldn't be processed in time, which made our team manager quite angry. I wonder if I'll get in any trouble for that. No one is allowed to leave early anymore. If you say so. Male. So for some context, I work in healthcare. At the moment, I'm on-call personnel that has been scheduled in the basic 9 AM to 5 PM on an outpatient clinic portion of the hospital. We take both walk-ins and scheduled appointments, seeing as many as 80 to 150 patients in a single day. But typically, we are done an hour early around 4 PM. Currently, my staff team is short 5 people due to high turnovers and people going off to advance their careers. This is something that is not quite uncommon. Because of this, the managers decided to implement 2 new emergency rules to help with coverage. The first one states that no one could leave early from their shift anymore, regardless if all patients have been completed for the day, as we may need it elsewhere. Secondly, on some days we must also find our own breaks, which can be entirely dependent on how many people called out for the day. Because we are so short-staffed, I have been unable to collect my full 1-hour break, as the shortage is leaving me to run the outpatient department by myself on most days. Thankfully, this had worked to my advantage, and for the last 2 months, I have been getting a lot of OT and extra pay for missing breaks. The benefit of being on-call personnel at my hospital is that we get a 20% higher salary in lieu of benefits. So I'm now making upwards of an extra $300-400/week. As you can imagine, management began to recognize the pattern and called me into the office last week to see why I'm costing them a fortune in OT/miss breaks. It is easy to tell from the start that the managers are not happy with this, even having the notepad ready to write me up. The director immediately pulls out my timesheet with highlights galore. The entire thing looked like my old college textbooks. A few days in particular caught management's eye, though. On the week I made $500 extra for the week. They had pulled camera footage of the back area for 3 shifts, where I was finished an hour early and just hung out at my desk until closing, basically arguing time theft, but also claimed on my timesheet that I had not taken a lunch. Before management could explode on me, I requested they pull up the patient schedule for the day, our personnel schedule for that day, and including the phone records to show that I had called other management to see if I was needed anywhere else. The rest of the conversation went somewhat similar to this, not exact verbatim. So if you're done an hour early, why didn't you just take your lunch then? Or float to another department? You mean just leave early? And I had called the other departments those days asking if they needed help. No one did, so I stayed where I was, because we aren't allowed to leave early. That is correct. We are not allowing staff to do that at this time. If you are not needed anywhere else, you should be taking that time to catch up on paperwork. All paperwork was done. I had completed orders/referrals in our system for the next week. All are time stamped for proof. Also, our current contract says we cannot take lunch for the last hour of the shift, but the idea of me taking a lunch in the last hour and leaving early are effectively the same. If you would like me to not go over into Morot, then allowing me to leave early so I can legally acquire a lunch would greatly help you. After the awkward conversation, I was told that was all they needed and would get back to me. After 3 days, management concluded that the rules still need to be properly enforced due to staffing, and therefore I was completely valid in what I had put in my timesheets. To this day, I'm still acquiring the extra money. I expect to pay off 3 student loans by the end of the year thanks to the extra income. Feels good. Can't answer my questions. Loser sale mail. I hope this belongs here. At the time, I was a 21 years old female in the Navy. I was buying a car while on leave way back in the mid-70s. My dad drove me to the closest city since I didn't have a vehicle. My ancient car that had already gone through 3 family members had finally died. I had already gotten financing at my local small town bank who told me to just write a check and they would finish the paperwork afterwards. Like I said, the bank was in a very small town and things like that were common. They knew me and I knew everyone who worked there. I was looking at a really nice car that was only about 3 years old. The dealership had a banner that said, "We will answer your every question or we can't sell you your next car," or something like that. I talked, or at least tried to talk to the salesman. He only wanted to talk to my dad. Dad kept telling him to talk to me. He tried to convince me that we needed to fill out the paperwork for financing, even though I told him that it was already taken care of. He asked my dad what his budget was and dad said, "Talk to her," pointing to me. I was ready to walk away right then and there, but I really liked that car. We finally were ready for a test drive. I drove, the salesman in the front with me, and my dad in the back. The salesman would answer every question by turning around and answering to my dad. Dad and I exchanged looks in the rearview mirror. I turned around and started back to the lot. The salesman, confused, asked my dad why we were going back so soon. I told him that he obviously didn't want to sell to me since he refused to talk to me, so why continue the test drive? When we got back, he kept trying to talk to my dad and convince him to talk some sense to the little lady. I said, pointing to his banner, "You won't answer my questions, so you can't sell me a car." He still tried to convince my dad that we could work something out just between them. Too bad. I really wanted that car, but he lost the sale. I ended up at another dealership that actually talked to me and bought a nice little 4-year-old car that served me well for several years. Edit. Thanks for the feedback. Just to clarify, this was in the mid-1970s and the sexism was par for the course. My dad only supported me because I was always the one out of all my siblings that would tear him a new one if he pulled his normal sexist crap on me. He was a real piece of work who abused my siblings, but left me alone because he knew that I wouldn't keep quiet about it. They are 7, 8, and 9 years older than me. My brother left as soon as he graduated high school for the Marines because Vietnam was a better choice than staying at home. If you read my other posts, you will see that I don't take crap from anyone. I have a couple of stories about my dad that I might post someday. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment what subreddit you will like to see stories from, and please subscribe.